You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. Are you satisfied with the size of your business the way it is now? Well, that all depends on whether or not that business is able to support you in living the life that you want to live. For most business owners, the answer is no. They want to grow their business. They're not satisfied to keep it just the way it is. And so people will very often turn to experts who are specialists in how to grow a business. Starting a business is very different from growing and scaling that business. And so what we'll find is that for a lot of rebelpreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs, that's where they get stuck, is in the scaling and the growing phase of their business. So how can we plan for and execute company growth? And what is the role of the company leaders, in this case, the rebelpreneur or the solopreneur, in achieving the growth that they want? That's going to be today's topic as we bring in Mark Hodges. He is a former senior officer of a large publicly traded home building company, and he was responsible for strategic planning, organizational development, and operational execution. He now consults with growing companies to chart a path for growth, improve operations, and build the infrastructure to achieve growth objectives. So we're really fortunate to have him. Mark Hodges, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Thank you, Ralph. Glad to be here. Glad to be with you.
Tell us a little bit about your journey through corporate America, from one of the largest publicly traded home building companies to now you are a consultant working with growing companies to help them to grow and improve. What got you interested in this?
It's a great question, Ralph. When I joined the home building company in 1993, I'd been in the industry for 8 or 10 years or so, but I joined a company that was on the cusp of explosive growth. We were at that time a $500 million a year company, and we grew in 12 years to $2.5 billion in revenues. We went from 2,000 employees to 8,000 employees, operating in 5 mid-Atlantic states to 15 states across the United States. And I was happily had a seat at the table in trying to orchestrate and organize for that growth, that explosive growth. The home building industry was doing well, which helped with that growth, and some of our growth was through acquisition. But nonetheless, as leading the strategic planning for the company and being accountable for creating the organizational development mechanisms that support that type of explosive growth, especially in the number of people working for our company, to bring on 6,000 people in 12 years and do it well is an immense challenge. And so I was given the opportunity to create all the organizational mechanisms, the recruiting and hiring processes, performance management, succession planning, career path development, et cetera, as well as training, et cetera. And I was, because I had a seat at the table and was involved in that, I learned a lot about the challenges of growing. A lot of business owners know how to do their business. They know how to create their product or provide their service, but very few intrinsically know how to grow, and it's an immense challenge. And as companies don't stay the same for very long, I don't know of many businesses that can remain the same year in and year out. You're either growing or you're shrinking. So if you're choosing to grow, you better learn about the mechanisms to do so.
That is very timely advice. I remember Michael Gerber talking about that, and he says that you're either growing or dying. And if you've made the decision that you don't want to grow, you just want to keep things kind of the way they are, then you're already dead. So
exactly right, Ralph.
So this is what you have been on the cutting edge of for so long. Is there a big difference in planning for large corporate growth compared to the businesses that you're working with now that may not be large publicly traded businesses, and they may not be talking about thousands of employees, but are the principles that much different between a big corporate concern and a small business?
What a great question. My clients range in size from $20 million in revenue to over $1 billion in revenue. And I find myself having the same conversations by and large. However, complexity is certainly an important variable. Complexity and investment. It's really hard for a smaller company to make the decision when their bookkeeper is no longer sufficient to manage the books, but they need a controller or a chief financial officer, a financial partner. When the guy that was a good salesman that they made the director of sales is the wrong guy for the position, and how to find the right people at the right time to support growth. It's about the organizational infrastructure that all companies grapple with, whether you're a big one and trying to get bigger, going international or to more states or whatever. You still have those same challenges about the infrastructure for growth and about operating procedures and processes. The bigger the company, while the processes may not get more complicated, the hierarchy of managing them becomes much more difficult. So essential conversations are the same. Complexity is the variable.
Gotcha. So who is an ideal prospect for you? How do you qualify who would best benefit from your expertise? You just mentioned a revenue range. And what are some of the other characteristics of an ideal growth-oriented company that you would typically work with?
That's another fine question. The ideal client for me, the size of the business is not so much relevant, and I do have a lot of home building clients, which is easier for me because I know the industry so well, but I have non-home building clients as well, law firms and appliance retailers and medical products manufacturers. The best thing of all is a leader, and there's usually one or two or three at the most, who are deeply intellectually committed to the idea of doing what it takes to grow their company and to adopt the behaviors and the habits and the culture that allows a company to prosper and grow. You can have a great business and be in a great market, but if you hire the wrong people and you have the wrong ethic and the wrong set of values, then you can grow for a while, but in the long run, you'll fail. So I look for the personality of high ethical commitment and the desire to create an organization and a great place to work for people. If I have a client who wants to create a great place to work where people can plan their careers and grow in their work, they've got the best chance for success. And then it's easier for me to help them to devise the mechanisms to support that growth. So it's really more about culture than anything else, Ralph, that drives my desire to work with companies. And I have, quote unquote, fired a couple of clients who I found didn't share those values and weren't really serious about it. They were just looking for someone to help them improve the bottom line and not so much grow a great company and a great place to work.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And it's interesting because I've had another conversation today about culture, the exact same conversation, and how that is increasingly becoming more and more important for companies who care about the bottom line. They've got to cultivate a culture that puts people first.
Organizations are organisms. That's why the word is organization. They are organisms. Any company, whether you manufacture a product or provide a service or whatever it is that you do, it is essentially a human activity. And we devoted huge amounts of energy at my former company to create a great place to work. In fact, one of our core mission statements was to create an environment in which our employees can flourish and love their jobs. And if you really have that in your heart and soul, and you know you want to build a great organization that can sustain and to continue to grow, it's all about people. And one of the hardest things for a small or growing business owner to face is either having the wrong person on the bus, a capable sales manager or a capable production guy who brings the wrong values, or has the right person, but they're in the wrong seat. the salesman who becomes the director of sales, who has no business being a director of sales but should be back on the sales floor, etc. The bookkeeper who's no longer skilled enough to manage the books. Those are hard choices for a small business owner or a growing business leader to face. The decision to change job roles and bring in the right people to help the company to grow. It's really hard to do, and it's hard to do well, especially if you don't have the mechanisms in place to do so. And then once you bring somebody on, if you're a 50 or 100-person company and you don't have a training department or program, you don't have a career path, a succession planning program, or performance management system, you got to put those things in place. And the hard thing to do is, when do you do that? When do you invest the resources in a human performance management system? Where you do quarterly reviews of your employees to assess their performance, build compensation plans that work. Those things are really hard to do and hard to do well. Smaller companies that are looking to grow tend to put off those activities because they're just looking to get enough people to keep growing. I've got more business, a new contract came in the door, I need bodies. And they bring in bodies, and it's not the way to grow.
I can see right away that we mentioned some of the challenges, and there's lots of challenges for planning and executing company growth. You've hit on a few. Is there a most common problem you see with helping the organizations that you help? Is there a particular obstacle it seems like that they all tend to stumble over in this journey towards growth?
Very much so. I mentioned the people part and the organizational development mechanisms. We talked about that. Second, they've outgrown their processes. You have operational processes in most companies, and when you're a smaller company, you probably don't document them well, policies and procedures and how work gets done, and guidebooks to help new employees or job-changing employees know the job role and what their responsibilities are. And so they sort of run at it. And, 5 people have jobs that overlap. And internal communications start to break down because the departmental hierarchies start to build up. You're growing your company, but you aren't growing your operational processes and your communications mechanisms to support that growth. So what you have is just a lot more people, but not a lot more organizational ethic to make sure that people communicate properly, that the silos begin to diminish, interdepartmental communications are effective, but more importantly, operational processes. When you outgrow your processes or you don't document them and train them in and have people knowing how to do their jobs, processes become tribal. A new person joins the company and someone says, the procedure manual says to do it this way, but this is how I do it and it works a lot better, so do it this way. And when the organization doesn't have the maturity to get people to come on board, train them properly, and they know how to do their job really well, they figure out their own way to do it. And inefficiencies get grown into the system. There's money all over the floor of companies with inefficient, ineffective operational processes. And that's because they haven't invested energy in creating them when they grow. They think growth is getting more business and hiring more people to do it. That's not what growth is. Growth is about building an organization to support more business. And they don't know how to do it. So they just grow by grunting and working harder and hope to God that they can keep putting product out there or keep providing the services, and they don't focus energy on the infrastructure needed to make the company grow. And when I joined this company that I was there for 20 years, they had outgrown their processes. When I was hired, the CEO said to me, we've outgrown our processes, we've outgrown our customers, we've outgrown our employees, we've outgrown our business partners. We've grown so fast that none of our processes and systems work anymore. Help us. And that's what I went there to do, is to figure that out.
Well, you had one advantage there in that the CEO recognized all of this. He or she came right out and said, "Hey, we have outgrown our processes." And I think for a lot of organizations, they don't even realize that, or worse, they don't even have a process. It's just kind of a mental or a muscle memory or something, but it's not documented. It's not systematized. So as we consider all of these different issues and kind of focus in, what would someone need to do to better position themselves and their organization? We talked a little bit about the role of company leaders in achieving growth. What do these leaders need to focus on to begin to overcome and really position themselves favorably for planning and for executing company growth in a way that empowers people and doesn't leave them deflated and fatigued?
That's Ralph. You ask wonderful questions, and that's a really good one too. And I had on my notes in preparation for this what I was just about to talk to you, and you pulsed on it just a moment ago. An honest, and I mean honest, self-assessment, not just of the leader themselves and their ability to manage a growing business, and understanding their gaps of knowledge and skill to do such a thing. When they do an honest self-assessment of their own skills and gaps, then they know where to go or can find out where to go to get help with those things. And that's where I come in. But as important, they need to hear from their people. They need to be a great listening leader. Your employees, if they like you and want to work for you because they believe in you and they believe in your ethic and your values and your commitment to them and their career enjoyment, and they know that they can trust you to listen well, they'll tell you what's wrong with your company. People in the front line, I used to say, when I was building process improvement mechanisms, I'd say, let's let the people who do the work fix the process. Why do the leaders and the managers shuffle off to the conference room and redesign operational processes when the people who do the work say, what were you thinking when you redesigned that process? You don't know what goes on out here. So when we started forming process improvement teams, the leaders were shunned. Leaders, go away. Let's have the people who do the work figure it out, how to make the process work better or how to make the company more profitable. I once did a day with one of our divisions. We had 180 employees in the division, and we called it the cost-saving day because the division president wanted to give everybody a raise, and the company was unhappy about it. And I said, well, let's all get together for the day and spend one day together and identify 15 ways to scoop the money off the floor of the company. We're going to break into groups and we're going to talk for the day. At the end of that day, the employees had pointed out dozens of process malfunctions that were costing the company hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably more in the millions, just by virtue of being together and talking to one another about what drives them nuts every day. Where are they inefficient? Where do they see things breaking down? If that leader has the courage to get to their employees and say, we need to grow, what's going to keep us from doing that? And get the employees engaged in an organized discussion about that, they'll tell you what they need to fix, and then they'll help you fix it because they got to weigh in on it, which is really important.
Well, and all of the techniques for trying to get people to buy into the corporate vision or whatever the latest and greatest technique is, you just gave us one of the greatest ways to get buy-in is to have people that you're making decisions about, have them contribute to those decisions, have them participate, actually have them create solutions to the problems that they're dealing with on a daily basis. And what better buy-in could you get than that sort of participatory leadership?
And in addition to that, thank you, Ralph. And in addition, ask them what they need to do their job better in terms of training. Ask them what they want in terms of an opportunity for the next job. What are you looking for in your career? How can we help you to build it? What job would you like next, and what training do we need to get for you to get that job? People will stay with you through thick and thin if you give them a path and an opportunity to make a meaningful contribution. I've always said it this way. Nobody, well, not nobody, but almost nobody goes to work every day saying, my plan is to do a lousy job today and to do as little as possible. Very few people go to work with that in their mind. Everybody just about wants to make a contribution, wants to feel valued, wants to feel competent, and wants to be recognized and appreciated for the work that they do. That's what working people do. Thank God somebody picks up my trash every Tuesday morning because somebody's willing to do that for me. And so I go out and thank them for picking up my trash and tell them how important it is to me that they do that for me. And the trash man looks at me like I'm crazy, but guess what? He gets it. He's appreciated for what he does. If the leader can engage his employees in planning for growth and even says to them, look, bookkeeper, you probably don't have the skills to be my financial partner, but I want you to become that if you're interested. How can we get you there? These are the things that help companies to grow. Instead of just looking for the next contract or the next customer, build the organizational infrastructure to support that growth once it comes. Here's what happens. Companies wait until they get the new business, and then they scramble to figure out how they're going to perform with that new business.
Right.
And that's a formula for disaster. But if you build the organizational infrastructure to support the growth that's coming, it's a little more expensive in the short term because you got to invest in people before you have all that business. But once the business comes, you're ready to manage it well.
So, Mark, I would imagine you are a very busy guy with all the companies and the organizations that need your help and want to grow and want to do it in the right way. So you probably have a lot going on. What are you working on right now that's got you really excited that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I have a client. This happens to be a home builder who has decided to essentially redesign his company. He's been a custom home builder for 2 generations. His father was a custom home builder, and he has been a custom home builder for the last 20 years. And by custom, it means, for those of you who don't really know exactly what that means, is someone comes to him with a piece of land and they hire an architect and they design a house with his help, and then he builds a one-of-a-kind home for a customer. And he builds about 25 of those every year. He has gone out and bought a bunch of land, and he's decided that he's going to become a production home builder, was what we would call a builder who buys a parcel of land upon which they build 25 or 30 or 50 or 100 homes with 4 or 5 products available, etc. And he's redesigning his company to become a production home builder. He thought, when I first met him a little over a year ago, that it would be fairly simple. It's building houses. It's the same kind of thing, after all, isn't it? And I said, the only thing that your custom home business has in common with a production home building business is that houses are involved. Nothing else do they have in common. And so we've set about to build a company, to design a home building company from the ground up, a production home building company, which for me, I got to join a company that was already thousands of homes. And it's so exciting for me to be thinking with a really smart, capable partner, not a business partner, but a buddy partner, and help him to think about and create a company from the ground up that will have all the mechanisms it needs to be successful. And that to me is just fantastically exciting. It's a whiteboard design of a company.
Very, very exciting. Well, it sounds like that you really have a passion for this, and you definitely have the experience. If our listeners want to reach out to you, find out more about you and how you can help them, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn for sure. Mark Hodges, Hodges is my name, and my company is Blueprint Strategic Consulting, one word, Blueprint. And you can always send me an email, which is my name, Mark Hodges 1018 @gmail. I'd be delighted to hear from anyone who would like to chat. I am busy, but I love what I do, and immodestly, I'm good at it, and I really love the idea of helping a business owner who recognizes fully, I'm growing and I'm not quite sure how to manage it. I can help.
Excellent. Well, this has really been eye-opening and motivational for any business owner, any organizational leader at whatever stage of growth that you're at to overcome these challenges and to plan and execute company growth in a smart way. If you need help, Mark is your guy. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Just one, and I've made the point already, but I'm going to make it one more time. Your organization, no matter its size, no matter its scope, no matter its product or service, is a human organism. It is what it is. It's all about people. The first thing I would do if I were you running my business is take a hard look at everyone on my team and make sure that the right people on the bus and they're the right people in the right seats on the bus. Because without them being in the right place and without them being the right people, your growth will be stymied. Make sure you've got the right team and be really honest and transparent about that. That'll help you to grow.
Excellent. Words of wisdom from Mark Hodges. He is a former senior officer of a large publicly traded home building company responsible for strategic planning, organizational development, and operational execution. Now he consults with growing companies to chart a path for growth, improve operations, and build the infrastructure to achieve growth objectives. You can connect with Mark Hodges on LinkedIn at Blueprint Strategic Consulting. And we'll have that link up on the Rebelpreneur website as well. Mark, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Ralph, I enjoyed it very much. Thanks so much for having me.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.